Hi everybody, my name is Debbie Farinella and I'm on the creative design team at Sizzix, and I'm super excited that I'm invited back to Scrapbook.com just to share with you all of our favorite things, and especially our newest member of the family, the Switch machine. This is a Switch machine that we absolutely adore, and guess what? Scrapbook.com has an exclusive color, and it's our cherry blossom. It goes with all of our cherry blossom projects, but you don't have to only do cherry blossom projects with the cherry blossom machine. It's just the color that they chose, and it's absolutely delicious, just like cherries. So I'm going to walk you through all the technology and all the tips and tricks of the machine and everything that it includes and all the wonderful things that you can do with it. So I'm going to go ahead and walk you through all of the little parts and pieces that are included. This is our Switch machine. It's the Big Shot Plus. It's electronic. It has the 9-inch opening, just like our Big Shot Plus machine. This one has the door. You just release it and it falls on its own. You don't have to push it down for it to be opened up to ready to feed your product through. So it's got the little storage container tray here. You can put your favorite dies in here. You can put your small pair of scissors, your little tape runner, any little extra pieces, your die picks that you have. Just the things that you use regularly, you want to make sure that that's stored in here. You can also use little snacks to keep in there in case you get hungry during your crafty days. So that stays closed during the process, but just to know that's there, and it's just a little added feature for you. We've got these little handles here, so if you're going to be carrying this around, they don't lift up. They're just these little ergonomic little sections here that your hands fit perfectly in there. Lift it up and it's ready to go. I believe it's 15 to 18 pounds, I'm not sure, no more than that. It's got the back plug here, and this is when you feed in all of your product through this machine. You hit the switch button for it to go in the reverse. Now when it's going forward, once the two roller sensors, now there's two sensors in here. There's one that goes to each end in the front, and the other one's just behind it from left to right, but there's two full sensors. Once the sensor feels your cutting pad, your die, or your embossing folder going through, it starts to take it. Once it takes it, you can let go, sing a song as it goes through, whichever song you want to sing, or just wait. You don't need to open this up because the final, once it starts to go through, it senses it, and this opens up when it's all done. What you want to do, and I'll show you in a minute, if you need to do it in the reverse, just like our embossing folders, you want to do more than one pass on the embossing folders. So before the final sensor hits your actual platform, that's when you hit the switch button. You want it to switch in the reverse. If you let it go all the way through, you don't want it to go all the way through. If it does go all the way through and you want to reverse it again, you're going to have to take it out and feed it this way. That'll give it another pass. It's just not switching it back and forth. If you want it to switch back and forth, like I said, make sure you can still see the cutting pad and the die or folder still partially before it hits the last center before you hit the switch. And then you can run it through one more time. So that's all the technology that you need to know for that. And I'm going to go ahead and show you everything that's included in the Big Shot Switch starter kit. So let me move this off to the side just a bit so you can see all the parts and pieces. So you have two cutting pads, just like the regular sandwich that you're used to using with the regular Big Shot machine, but these sandwich cutting pads have the word Sizzix on it, and it has a beveled edge. The beveled edge just it's like a driveway, just kind of goes down, it slopes down. You want to make sure that is the top. You want to make sure the word Sizzix is visible, so when you're running it through the machine, since it's kind of tapered down, the roller can grip it and bring it through. Any of our cutting pads will work on this machine. You can have the regular plus one on the bottom, and if your die or your embossing folder, obviously embossing folders are smaller, but if they're not a plus size, as long as your cutting pad is covering the area of your product, then you can use that cutting pad. It doesn't have to be plus on the bottom and plus on the top, but the bottom one should be plus if you're using, and the top one should be plus if you're using a plus size die. But you can use the smaller ones. Any of our Sizzix machines, our Sizzix cutting pads can run through the machine. Any Sizzix product that we make, as long as it's a folder, a thinlet die, a bigs die, can go through the machine. Other products we cannot guarantee because the thickness of their cutting pads, the thickness of their dies, we can't guarantee that that'll work. But anything Sizzix that's die embossing related, or any kind of our pads, crease pad, our precision base plate, any of those will work through the machine. If it's Sizzix, it'll work on this machine. So what you want to make sure that you know is everything that you have on your adapter pad is spelled out right here. visually and in different languages. It'll show you the exact length, the exact sequence and sandwich that you need to cut. So if you're doing a framelit, you're going to have the platform. The image is right there, and that's this gray platform here. You're going to have adapter A if you're going to be doing any die cutting, and then the platform, the cutting pad. This is your material with the framelit on top. The blade is going against your paper, and then one more cutting pad on top. And it shows you the insignia of Sizzix there, so you remember that's the part that has to feed through your machine first. Now if you're doing a thinlit, it's more intricate, so the blade needs to be faced up against your paper. So the level of the sandwich, the layers need to be the same. Platform, adapter pad, cutting pad, blade up, then your material, whether it's a thin cardstock, heavy cardstock. If you're doing a Big's die, that's a totally different process. You don't do this. But any of our thin foils, if you're going to be cutting our sculpting foam, our texture roll, any of that, you need to have the blade up on any of these dies that are thinlits, and then another cutting pad on top. Now, if you're going to be doing anything really intricate, like you can see these are two butterflies. This one has a lot more detail. This one, the blade goes down, but instead of using a cutting pad like this one, you're going to use our precision base plate. That's not included in your starter kit or with the machine. It's a base plate that it has a metal finish to it on one side. The blade that's more intricate goes against your paper, and then this one, the precision base plate, acts as your cutting pad on the bottom. It just has a metal against the metal, and it gives the more intricate dies a cleaner, perfect cut. And you just, with the pressure on this machine, it cuts it beautifully. And then one more cutting pad on top. The pressure on this machine is equal to the fold away, which has a lot more pressure. So a lot of die cuts that you might have to run through 2 times on the Big Shot machine, regular Big Shot machine, but on the Plus Switch Plus, and on the fold away, you just need to run it through with the precision base plate, and it's good to go. So you have the 2 cutting pads, the adapter pad, and the platform. Now on the platform, it'll spell out exactly what you need to do if you're doing any cut and embossing, any 3D embossing, or any impresslets. So it'll show you right here. You're going to just have this platform. You're not going to add the green, and there's no green image on here. The 3D platforms, you're going to have the 3D cutting pads. You're going to have the platform, a cutting pad, your folder with your material on the inside, and another cutting pad on top. This is the regular, textured impressions, the texture fades, and the impresslets. These are not 3D. The thickness of the plastic is not the same. That's why you're using 2 cutting pads. Now, if you're doing 3D embossing folders, you only need 1 cutting pad. The thickness of that embossing folder equals the thickness of a cutting pad, so that's why you only need 1 on top. And it'll show you, using this sandwich, you're going to be using a 3D textured impression, a 3D texture fades, a 3D impresslet, a switchlet, and a multi-level embossing folder. Those are all the thicker plastics that are used for any of the 3D impressions. The switchlet is a 3D mechanism, same idea as a 3D folder, but it has a blade on the inside that even though you're also cutting, the thickness of the plastic is so thick that you just need the 1 cutting pad. And it's easy to see. You look at the packaging of what you're die cutting or embossing, and it'll show you what it's called, and you'll know which level to do it on. So this plastic on the textured impressions and the texture fades is a lot thinner. That's why you need the 2 cutting pads. And this is for embossing. You're going to be using the cutting pad on this platform, your intricate die or any kind of thinlit, your material that you're embossing, the silicone rubber, and the impressions pad. This is a whole nother consumable product that you have that's totally unrelated to what's included in the machine. It's a separate product, but it lets any intricate die that you have turn into an embossed image. It won't cut it because the silicone rubber will soften the pressure as it goes through. The plastic of the impressions pad isn't as firm as a cutting pad, so you'll hear a little noise as it runs through, but it's not cutting, it's embossing that fine detail image of the butterfly, the heart, or whatever you're creating for an embossed image. So any thinlet that you have, you can turn that into an embossed image. Okay, so I'm not done yet with the fun that's included in your Cherry Blossom starter kit or any of your Big Shot Switch machine starter kits. You have a 3D embossing folder, and this is the hearts. It's got hearts in multi-levels. You've got the hearts that's a little bit less embossed than the other ones, and the levels just build up. So this is a beautiful assortment of confetti hearts that are just sprinkled all around. Makes for a great project. So you would build it on your sandwich for your switch machine like it showed you on the platform with 1 cutting pad on the top, and that's it. So you have the hearts as your embossing folder. You have a set of, between thinlets and framelets, you have 25 dies that are included in your starter kit. I mean, look at the assortment. You can build up individual flowers using multiples of this one, flower centers, build a few of these with your sculpting, paper sculpting kit, and create some beautiful little arrangements with whatever colors you want to use. This is an intricate die, so you have a little bit of everything. You have a framelit, you have the framelit, so you're able to lay this down over a printed design, whether it's a quote or a rubber stamp sentiment that you have, and you want to make sure it's even. If you're cutting out a photo, you don't want to cut off somebody's ear or part of their head. So with this, you can position the blade right over the exact image that you want to cut, make sure it's centered, and run it through the machine. So you have 5 shapes here of the framelits. You have this intricate die, and this is a separate die. So you can run both of these at the same time to cut this out, because this has a blade. This die here does not have a blade around it. So this will just create a design inside of your paper. But if you put them all through at the same time, and I'll show you how that looks, you're able to create a full piece. But if you just run this center one through, you can do a repeat pattern of this intricate design, and it's a beautiful design inside of your paper. And then same with this. These are the centers, and I'll show you how these all turn out. This is a part that when you run it through the machine, it'll die cut little slits, and then you just curl it around with your tweezers and adhere it to the center of the flower, and it gives a dimensional statement inside the center of any of your flowers that you've created. And of course, you have to have leaves and more flower centers when you create a flower. So these are part of the 25 thinlets and framelits that are included in your Switch starter kit, as well as the embossing folder. And let me go ahead and show you a few tricks and tips on how to use the machine. So I'm going to go ahead and emboss this piece of paper that I've already painted with our acrylic paint. Now this is using our rose gold acrylic paint, and it's kind of has an elastic finish to it. It's part of our effects range, and it's going to be able to emboss without cracking, without breaking up or chipping the paint away. So what you want to do is you want to make sure the wrong side of your paper is against the positive side of the 3D embossing folder. So when I say positive, that's the part that is raised up. So you have a positive and a negative. Some people call it a mountain and a valley. Some people say innie and outie, but a positive and negative. So if I lay this down on here, the positive hearts are going to push through this material into the negative, and they align perfectly with each other, and they create a beautiful image. So to soften my paper fibers, I'm going to go ahead and mist this paper just lightly, just on this side. If I do it on this side, it's just going to roll off. So I just want to soften the fibers a little bit so it'll give me a stronger impression on the heart design when it's all finished. So just misted it a little bit. I'm going to lay it down on here, so it doesn't have to be perfectly straight, because the image of the hearts are just kind of scattered around. Now I like to feed my, whether it's a die or a folder, just at an angle, just so you know that it's ready to catch it just at a point. If I do it like this, it's not going to ruin the machine, but when it hits the roller, it just kind of jumps it a little bit, which doesn't ruin the machine or the folder or your die. It just grips it better if it starts it at a slight angle. It's like chomping down on as you bring it through. So like I said, you want to make sure it runs through the machine with the word Sizzix visible, legible, not upside down, because this side is straight. It's smooth all the way across. You want it to be able to grip it with it at an angle. So I'm going to run it through the machine, and as the machine senses it's coming through, so you see the cutting pads are a little bit longer. That's how you want it to be. You want it to be able to grip it as it's going through. As it senses something coming through, it's going to take it, and I can leave it alone. If I want it to reverse, which I will on the 3D folder, I'm going to hit the switch button and have it run back through. And before it hits the last sensor, or the front sensor, I'm going to hit the switch and bring it back to me. And as it goes through, it doesn't turn off the power, it just stops running. You can still hear it, but you know it went through because you could see that it went all the way through. It doesn't turn the power off, and it's a universal power button, so that's the easy way to know that it went back through and the power is still on. But look at the detail on that beautiful painted, acrylic painted design. It's still Doesn't even chip away. If I folded it, creased it, it wouldn't chip away at all. It still gives that strong impression. I just love how that turned out. Now I'm going to go ahead and do some of the die cutting. So since you have this nice large area, as long as they're all chemical etch dies, which are our thinlits or our framelits, I can build all sorts of things. If I want to spell out somebody's name or do name and flowers, I can do all sorts of that because I have 9 inches and more lengthwise to be able to build my sandwich on here with all sorts of materials. So I'm just going to get a few things going here. And then I'll show you some samples on all the different things that you can create with what's included in the starter kit. And I love the fact that it's a starter kit. I mean, there's nothing better than buying a new toy, a machine, and going home and you're already ready to get started and playing instead of buying a machine, going home and now you got to go back out and get the dies and you go order some more things and you have it all ready. Buy one purchase and everything's ready to go. So I'm going to position this one right here because I know it's going to feed it into there like with a point already. And just say I want it to have a border. I can position that in the center like that. If I want to make sure it doesn't move, I can use my maker's tape. It won't affect this is our tape that's a low tack tape and it's not going to affect, it's not going to affect my product at all when I pull it away. Just make sure it stays put like that. So the bottom cutting pad is on there. Let me just add a leaf, even though it's yellow. And then make sure the cutting pad has the Sizzix legible and on the right side up. Cutting pad on the bottom, one on the top. The green adapter pad for thinlet cutting is ready to go, and I'm going to push it through the machine. Now the slower it goes, that means it's giving more pressure, so it senses all the cutting that it's doing versus just cutting one shape. So I know it stopped because you heard that last click, and once I take it out, the power stays on, the rollers just stop moving. And I can tell that it cut everything through from the bottom. The little maker's tape didn't ruin my paper. So I cut that out with a center one, so I've got that little border. And look how beautifully all the little pieces cut. Even the detail of the vein of the leaves. Every once in a while you get a few little pieces. You just take your die pick. We have all the poke holes in the back that don't ruin your material. Just pop it through. And even though I wanted this just to be a little frame, I still have this to use for a later date. I can run it through the embossing folder, or I can cut out a little heart or the butterfly inside of there. There's all sorts of things, so you never want to throw out your trash. But look at the detail on that. The fact that it cut out all that detail, and all of this in one pass through the machine. So I could create a flower, add this to the center if it was in another color, and all the things that you can cut through that 9-inch opening. You've got, and this little piece fell through there, or I could put all my pieces and store them in there if I want with my snacks. So that's all cut and ready to go, and I want to show you some projects that I've created with the starter kit. But before I do that, I would like to show you how well it cuts with a Big's die. So there's a few dies that you can, well, all of our dies can work in the machine, but Big's dies you do not need the platform, because just imagine if I have this and then I have a Big's die, it's not going to go through. I need something to restrict the space when I have this, because the thickness is not quite enough, but with the 2 cutting pads on top, like on your regular Big Shot machines, you need to have that when you're doing any kind of die cutting. But the materials that the Bigs can cut, since they're steel rule blades, the possibilities are endless. So this is our media board. It's thick like a mat board. Big's dies with the steel rule blades can cut mat board, chipboard, thin wood, 4 layers of cardstock, 8 layers of fabric. So for quilters, it's perfect, because if you're doing any kind of assembly line for quilting or appliques, cutting 8 at a time, I mean, the fact that you can get all that done in one swoop, look how much time it saves. So I'm going to cut this mat board using our doily die, and I want to make sure that my Sizzix cutting pad is visible and legible on this top cutting pad. And with the Big's die, I'm going to run it through. So the slower it goes is the more pressure. And you can hear all the crinkling because there's a lot of blades in this because it's a doily. But the fact that it cuts such intricate detail on mat board and media board, look at that. How gorgeous is that? If I wanted to put an adhesive sheet on this and adhere a fabric to it or a pattern paper or cardstock and then run it through, this is already beautiful and ready to go. I could finish it up with some of our effects, whether it's a luster wax or a glitter or any of the paste. This is a perfect embellishment to any card front or a scrapbooking page. Okay, so I want to show you a few samples of what we've created with this intricate die here. Now, like I said, you have this individual piece here, which is a framelit, and then you have this die here that only cuts out that design. And I'm going to show you exactly how it looks if you cut out with the framelit around it. So I went ahead and I cut out this, laid this on the paper with this in the center, just how it's laid out right there at the same time. So it cut that out. It's a great little bookmark all by itself. If I went ahead and cut this all by itself, it would cut an individual, just a rectangle, and I could do that in a different color and back it up. And that's what I've done here. So I cut it out of the Bluebell paper, and then I cut just that little framelit out of our silver opulent glitter paper, and it's a great bookmark. You can add it, give somebody a book for a gift, add it as a tag right on the back, but that's how it looks if you cut out each piece in a different color. Here it is with some of the flowers incorporated and the butterflies into the same project. This is all made from what's included in your starter kit and using our muted color cardstock. So with the flower centers, this is that one flower center that has that rectangle piece with the slits in it. This piece right here, this is how it turns out in the center. So when you curl it up around it, the little pieces folding over themselves, just roll it around your die pick and it'll create that center. And then these are the little pieces around it, the butterflies that are included, the little leaves. And with that intricate design, look how easy that was, all in one swoop. You could have laid it all out on your platform, run it through the machine with the correct colors or your colors of your choice, and you already got a card. This is the intricate die that I was showing you, but like I said, it only cuts out the center, and I just kept this border. But what I did is I ran it through the machine, and then I lined it up exactly, because it's going to meet up because all these pieces are cut from the same die. I just lined it up so the holes on the die matched the holes that were just cut through, ran it through, did it 3 times, and it looks like a full complete image. And then I just added the embellishment of the flower and the leaves. And this is using our opulent muted collection cardstock. So the pearly eucalyptus colors with the glitter, it makes a great card, and the detail is so pretty. This is almost a gift by itself. Using the hexagon pieces, the fallouts, these are the little parts that you can add. Just add it to a simple card. If you did a stamp sentiment, you don't even need to. You could die cut somebody's name and put it on the front. There's some more of the flowers on there, all included in the starter kit. You cut one of the framelits on a fold, whether it's at the top or the bottom. Save the fold by not completely cutting the entire piece. So if you lay a piece of cardstock that's folded in half and have the blade still exposed, you're going to be able to have a little folded card and just embellish it with the flowers. But before you adhere the flowers, as a background, you'll take one of the framelits after it's die cut and then emboss it. You don't want to emboss a full sheet and then die cut the shape because it'll flatten out the image and it won't be as strong. So have your shape already and then emboss it. So you have the hearts, and then popping off the hearts are the really pretty flowers that are included in your collection. And then lastly, this is just taking a few pieces of our cardstock, the hibiscus, the primrose, and the ballet slipper, tearing them in a full sheet and then cutting them to size, then embossing it. So it's almost like a full sheet. You don't emboss each piece at a time and run it through. You cut a full sheet with the strips already adhered, cut it to size, and then run it through, and then just embellish it with one of the flowers. And all of this and all these projects are created with the starter kit. Let me just show you really quick. This is that same band. So if you just cut out that intricate design and just cut it out of the center, you can create this little napkin ring and then add a little bit of crystal glaze on top of your little flower. And that's that little rectangle flower that when you fold it in half after you cut it, it creates that little loopy effect, and then put some little glaze and ink on top, and it glistens it up a little bit. And there's a little napkin ring for a little bridal shower or just somebody special.